He heard it before he saw it. Scraping. Low. Relentless. Like claws on wood, but slower. He stepped off the porch. Didn't say a word. Just followed the sound around the side. Boots crunching gravel. Shotgun still hanging loose in the morning's walk. The noise stopped when he turned the corner. There was a boy under the porch. Not hiding. Not scared. Digging. The shovel he held was bent in the middle like it had been run over by a wagon. He was using it anyway. Hands wrapped tight around the splintered handle. Dirt mounded behind him. Fresh. Damp. Deep. The man stood there a second too long. "You lost?" he asked. The boy didn't look up. "You deaf?" The shovel moved again, thunked hard against something under the soil. I said, "Mama told me you had gold down here." The man blinked. The words hung like fog. Slow. Thick. Wrong. "She said it's buried deep," the boy added, softer now. "Under the wood. Under the house you built for her." The man stepped closer. "Where's your mama?" The boy didn't answer. Just dug faster. "You can't be here." "She said you'd say that too." The man crouched low. "Look, kid, I don't know who your mama is, but you don't dig in a man's yard without a skin. You understand?" The shovel hit again. Metal on something harder. "You hear me?" The man snapped. The boy paused, sat back on his heels. His hands were caked in wet soil, fingernails broken and bleeding. He looked maybe 7, maybe 8, but his eyes looked older than that. Pale, dry, unblinking. "She said you look scared, just like you are now." "I ain't scared." "She said you'd lie about that too." The man stood up. "All right, that's enough. Give me the shovel." The boy held it tighter. I said, "No, kid, no." The man reached forward. The boy jerked back. "She said not to let you touch it. Said if you touched it, it'd stay buried again." "Buried what?" "You know." The man's voice dropped. "There ain't no gold." The boy kept staring. "Your mama's got the wrong man." "She said you'd say that too." The wind picked up, just a little. The porch boards above them creaked. The man rubbed the back of his neck. "What's your name?" The boy didn't answer. "You got a daddy?" He shook his head. "You from town?" No answer. "You alone?" Silence. The man sighed, stepped back. He looked at the mound of dirt. The hole was maybe 2 feet wide, deeper than he expected. The bent shovel stuck upright in the center, like a marker. "You hungry?" he asked. The boy shook his head. "Did you sleep somewhere last night?" The boy stood, didn't answer. "You need someone to call?" He just stared. The man's fingers curled. Something in his chest went tight. There was something about the way the boy looked at him, like he knew things that hadn't been said in decades. "You can't just show up here," the man said again, quieter now. "You can't say things like that." The boy walked around the hole, picked up the shovel again. "I'm not going to ask you again." The boy jabbed the shovel into the dirt. "She said the gold's not money." The man stopped. "She said it's pieces. She said it's teeth. She said you kept them 'cause you were scared no one would believe her." The silence turned hard, unforgiving. The man's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "She said you kept her under this porch like a secret, like a promise." He felt something in his gut shift. "She said I'd know when I saw the wood." The boy knelt, scraped aside more dirt with his bare hands. "Stop that. She said you nailed her name under here." The man took a step forward. The shovel came up. Not fast, not threatening. Just there, between them. "Don't touch me." The man looked down at his hands. They were trembling. "I didn't." "You did." He shook his head. "You don't know what you're saying." The boy dropped the shovel. "I'll go." The man blinked. "But I'll be back tomorrow." "Why?" "She said the gold didn't rise all at once. Said it takes digging and remembering." The man didn't answer. "She said you used to love her. But love doesn't mean safety." He turned. I walked back toward the open field. No bag, no jacket, just dirt on his shirt and silence on his heels. The man watched until the boy vanished down the old hill path. Then he turned toward the porch, toward the hole. He walked to it slowly, bent down, reached into the dirt. His hand brushed something cold. Not metal, wood. Letters carved shallow. Only the first one is still clear. M. He pulled back, staggered to his feet. The bent shovel lay on the ground beside the hole, pointing back at him, like it knew something. He didn't move, not for a long, long time. The boy was back by morning. Same spot, same dirt, same bent shovel. The man watched from the porch, arms crossed, coffee untouched on the rail. He hadn't slept, not really, just sat up listening to the scrape that never stopped. He stepped down slowly. Gravel popped under his boots. I told you to leave. The boy didn't look up. You hear me? Shovel in. Dirt out. The man stopped at the edge of the porch. What's your name? No answer. You got one, don't you? Scrape. Pause. Toss. I said, what's your name? The boy looked up, eyes calm. She said you'd remember me. That ain't a name. She said you'd say that. The man's voice dropped. I ain't playing this game. Me neither. You need to get off my land. No, you're trespassing. She said I'm home. The man stepped closer. I'll call the sheriff. She said he won't come. Why not? She said he's scared of you. The man froze. The boy stood, brushing dirt from his knees. She said names don't matter. Not when guilt already knows the sound of your own voice. You think you're clever. No. You think this is some kind of joke? No. You don't just show up, dig in a man's yard, throw words around like they don't weigh anything. They do weigh something. Then say your damn name. The boy tilted his head. Say yours first. The man clenched his jaw. I'm not doing this. She said you'd already done it. Who is she? The boy didn't answer. I said, who is she? You know. The man's voice cracked. I don't. You do. He turned, pacing toward the steps. This is crazy. The boy's voice followed. She said you built this house to forget. He stopped. She said you nailed her piece by piece. The man spun. You don't know what you're talking about. She said every room's got a lie in the walls. I didn't do anything. She said you did nothing when it mattered. Silence stretched. The man stared at the hole. How long are you going to keep digging? Till you remember, there ain't nothing down there but rot. She said memories don't rot. They wait. He stepped forward fast, grabbed the shovel. That's enough. The boy didn't move. I said, you going to hit me? The man went still. Go on, the boy whispered. She said you raised your voice, never your hands. I'm not going to hit you. Then let go. He let go. The shovel clattered to the ground. The boy knelt again, hands in the dirt. The man crouched low. Where are you from? No answer. You got people? She said I had you. You're not mine. She said blood doesn't matter. Silence does. The man flinched. She said I sound like her. He shook his head. You're just a kid. Kids see more than grown men want. Why are you doing this? She said you need to feel what she felt. I don't know her. The boy looked up sharp. Yes, you do. The wind pressed through the trees. Dry leaves whispered across the steps. The man sat on the edge of the porch, rubbing his hands together. Did you sleep somewhere last night? The boy didn't answer. You want breakfast? Still nothing. You want me to pretend none of this is happening? The boy sat back. She said the truth ain't what you say. It's what you do when no one's looking. The man rubbed his eyes. What was her name? She said not to give it. Why? She said you'd remember it wrong. He looked at him, long, hard. I don't remember it at all. She cried when she said that. The man stood. You think just 'cause you throw around ghost stories and riddles I'm going to confess to something? You're wrong. She said fear sounds loudest when it's cornered. He walked to the door. The boy kept digging. He stopped, turned back. Why here? The boy paused. This is where she ended. The man's hand clenched around the doorknob. She said her name's buried under your floorboards. In your bed. In your breath. Get off my property. The boy stood. She said you'd run out of ways to lie. Now. She said you'd try to bury me too. The man slammed the door behind him. Inside, everything was too quiet. Walls closed in. Floor groaned beneath his steps. He walked to the hallway. Touched the old picture frame. No photo inside. Just dust. Kitchen. Sink. Water wouldn't run. He sat at the table. Stared at the cracked plate that hadn't been used in years. Outside, the sound of digging started again. Sharper now. Faster. Like something was remembering how to breathe. The shovel struck something solid. Not wood. Not stone. Metal. The boy froze. The man was watching from the porch again, arms folded tight, like he hadn't moved since dawn. The boy knelt lower, brushed dirt with his fingers. The object caught the sun just enough to flash dull and gold. He dug around it, careful now. The man stepped down. Slow. Measured. What is it? The boy didn't answer. He pulled it free. Small. Flat. Star-shaped. The man's feet stopped on the last step. The boy stood, holding the rusted sheriff's badge in both hands like it burned. She said this means you chose silence over her. The man's jaw clenched. That ain't mine. She said you buried it the same day you buried your voice. I never wore that. She said you wore it when it mattered. The man stepped forward. Where'd you get it? From under your house. That don't mean. She said it means everything. The boy held it out. The rust had eaten away at the edges, but the shape was clear. The engraving is almost gone, but not enough. You could still make out part of the name. The man looked away. You remember now? The boy asked. No. You sure? I said no. She said denial's just cowardice with a hat on. I didn't do anything. You let it happen. I didn't know. She said you knew. The man's hands opened and closed like he didn't know what to do with them. I was just a deputy. I didn't have a say. She said you had one chance. One. She came to the station at night. The man muttered. I was alone. The boy didn't speak. She was shaking. Said she needed help. Said someone was after her. Still silent. I told her to go home. Said I'd send someone. But I didn't. The boy's fingers curled around the badge. Why not? I was scared. Of who? The man didn't answer. The boy stepped closer. She said he came with fire. I didn't light it. She said you didn't stop it. I didn't know he'd. She said you watched. The man's breath caught. I saw the smoke too late. She screamed your name. His shoulders sagged. She said it was the only thing she had left to give you. I didn't mean. She said it doesn't matter when you're dead. The man sank onto the step. She was just a girl. She was my mama. The man looked up. The boy placed the badge in his lap. She said forgiveness is for the ones who try. I tried too late. The boy sat down across from him, cross-legged in the dirt. She came to you because she had no one. I wasn't supposed to open the door. But you did. He nodded once. Then you shut it again. The man swallowed hard. I did. Why? They told me not to get involved. Said she was in trouble. Said she made things up. And you listened. I didn't want to lose my job. She lost everything. I know. The badge gleamed, still wet with earth. She said the badge was just a symbol. Said it doesn't mean anything unless the man behind it stands for something. I never stood for anything. You stood for silence. He didn't argue. The boy reached down, scooped up another handful of dirt, and sprinkled it over the badge. She said it doesn't deserve to shine anymore. The man didn't move. You still think there's gold down here? The boy asked. The man shook his head. Me neither. What do you want from me? Truth. You already have it. No, I have a confession, not the truth. What's the difference? She said the truth doesn't need words. It needs change. I don't know how to fix it. You can't. Then what? Dig. The man blinked. What? She said the deeper you go, the more you see. He looked at the badge. What else is under there? Memories. I buried those for a reason. She said that's why they haunt. The man stood. I walked to the hole. The boy handed him the shovel. He didn't take it. You want me to do this? Yes. He reached out, slowly, fingers closing around the worn handle like it might bite. The first scoop was shallow. The second cut deeper. Dirt piled up beside him. The boy watched, silent now. The wind passed through the trees behind them, and for the first time, the man kept digging. The truck rolled up slowly. Dust rose behind it like smoke. The man didn't stop digging. He knew the engine, knew the brakes, knew the door would creak twice, once when it opened, once when it slammed shut like she meant it. He kept his eyes on the hole. Boots hit the ground. Soft steps. Not rushed, not scared. The boy stood near the porch, back straight. He didn't look up until she reached him. She laid a hand on his shoulder. He gripped her skirt without a word. The man glanced over. You shouldn't be here, he said. She didn't answer, just looked at the dirt piled high and the badge resting beside it. Thought you were done with this place, he added. I was, she said. Then why come back? She looked at the boy. Because lies don't stay buried. He stood, brushed the soil from his hands. He's got no business dragging you into this. He didn't drag me. Word got out. Words always do. The boy whispered something to her, lips close to her side. She leaned in, listened. Her face didn't change. What did he say? The man asked. She kept her eyes on him. He said you lied before, and you're lying again. The man took a step forward. You think I lit the match? I think you let it burn. I didn't start that fire, but you didn't put it out. I didn't know how. You knew how to hold a hose when my barn caught fire, she snapped. That was different. No, it wasn't. He exhaled. You don't know what you're talking about. I know she came to you first. That was 20 years ago. She was 16. The silence hung like rope. The boy's grip tightened on her skirt. She was just a girl, the widow said. I know. She asked for help. I told her to go to the preacher. She did. He turned her away. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. He looked away. She stepped closer. You remember what she said in the letter? He didn't answer. You remember? The man's voice was thin. I burned it. She nodded. That's what you do, huh? Burn what doesn't fit. She made me choose. And you chose him. I chose survival. You chose silence. His jaw clenched. I did what I had to. No, you did what was easier. The boy looked between them, still silent. The widow turned to him. Show me. He walked to the edge of the hole and pointed. She crouched beside it, studied the loose soil, the stained badge, the rusted shovel. Where did he put it? She asked. The boy nodded. She stood, faced the man. You bury things, they rot, but they don't disappear. I know that now. Too late. He nodded once. You said she made you choose. The widow said. What did she ask? She asked me to tell the truth. And you didn't. I was scared. So was she. The man wiped his hands on his pants. Why are you here, really? She looked at the boy. He's not lying. I didn't say he was. But you don't believe him. I believe he believes what she told him. She told him the truth. He looked at the boy. You don't even know what you're digging for. The boy's voice was quiet. She said it ain't about what's down there. It's about what you buried to walk away. The man swallowed. You her son? The boy didn't answer. You sure? She said blood doesn't make a family. Memory does. The widow's voice softened. He's here because you're the only one left who saw what happened and stayed quiet. I wasn't the only one. No, but you were the first. He nodded slowly. You came here to shame me? No, she said. I came to make sure you don't stop digging. He looked at her. You think there's more down there? She stepped back. I think the worst part of a grave is what it does to the living. The boy let go of her skirt and walked to the shovel. The man didn't stop him. He handed it over, then stepped into the hole, and kept digging. The man was asleep in the chair, boots still on, shirt half-buttoned, one hand wrapped around a coal mug. The boy moved quietly. He'd watched how the door stuck, how the boards creaked near the window, how the attic hatch took a twist to lift. He'd counted every step of the ladder before the man ever knew he was in the house. He held a candle stub, found in the drawer behind the stove. It barely lit the rafters, but it was enough. Dust breathed when he moved. The attic wasn't big, just boxes, old trunks, cracked crates. He didn't touch most of it, just walked straight to the one thing that felt wrong. An old chest nailed shut, with one side already pried open. Inside, cloth brittle paper, a long black book wrapped in oilskin. The ledger, he sat with it in his lap, opened slowly. Every page was named. First names, sometimes last, town names, ages, all women. Some were underlined, some circled, but the ones crossed out, every one in thick red ink. He didn't breathe as he turned page after page. He didn't have to. He could feel her in the ink. She'd told him this was here, told him to find it, said he'd know her name when he saw it. And he did. Fourth page, middle row, her name not full, but close enough, red line straight through it like someone wanted her to vanish, but didn't finish the job. He closed the book, tucked it under his arm, climbed down the ladder just as the man woke. The man blinked hard, startled. "What are you?" The boy dropped the ledger on the table. The man froze. The boy opened it. I turned it in, pointed. These were hers, weren't they? The man didn't speak. "Say it." He looked away. "Say it. Where'd you get that?" "You know where." The man stood, kicked the chair back. "You had no right. You had no right to keep it." "It's mine." She said it was hers. He slammed his hand on the table. "Get out." "No." I said, "Get out of my house." "Not till you tell me." "I don't know you a damn thing." "These names, they don't mean nothing now. They meant something when you wrote 'em. I didn't write all of 'em, but you cross 'em out." The man grabbed the ledger. The boy held tight. "Let go," the man growled. "No, I swear to God." She said, "You don't believe in God, just power." The man yanked harder. The widow's voice cut in sharp from the doorway. "Let go of the damn book." The man stopped. The boy didn't. The widow stepped inside like she'd never left this house. Eyes locked on the man's grip. "You don't burn paper if it's innocent," she said. He let go. The ledger dropped on the table. She walked over, opened it, ran her fingers down the names. I knew some of these girls. The man sat down. Hard. Marcy Horn. She was 15. They sent her upstate to stay with cousins. Never came back. The boy pointed. "That one." The widow nodded. "Crossed out." She flipped again. Nadine Carter. The sheriff said she drowned in the mill pond. No one ever found the body. She said the sheriff helped. The man looked up fast. "No." She said, "You helped him." "No." She said, "You let him." He stared at the pages. I didn't know what he was doing at first. "You figured it out." "Too late." "But you kept the ledger." I didn't know how to throw it away. "Because it'd follow you," the widow said, "even in ash." He didn't answer. The boy whispered, "She's on there." "I know," the man said. "Crossed out." "I didn't do it." "You didn't stop it." "No." The widow closed the book. The room was quiet. The boy stepped back. She said the names still hum. Said if you sit real still, you can hear them scratching from under the porch. The man buried his face in his hands. The widow spoke gently. "Why'd you keep it, if not guilt?" "Because someone had to remember." "Then say her name." He didn't speak. "Say it," the boy whispered. The man opened his mouth, but no sound came. The widow laid the ledger on the table, flat. "Don't worry," she said. "We'll say it for you." The man woke up choking. Smoke thick in his throat, curling up the stairs, pressing against the ceiling like it had something to say. He stumbled out of bed, barefoot, coughing. The window pulsed orange. The barn was on fire. He didn't stop for boots. Didn't grab a coat. Just ran. The wind hit him hard, hot and hungry. Sparks lifted off the roof like angry birds. The wood cracked and screamed. Fire danced like it had been waiting. The boy was already there, standing just beyond the edge of the flames, face lit, arms at his sides like he'd conjured himself. What the hell? The man shouted, voice raw. What did you do? The boy didn't move. I said, what? She told me you'd try to burn me too. The words landed like fists. The man staggered forward, hands out. I didn't light it. The boy stared through the smoke. She said, when the truth gets close, you burn the edges. I was asleep. She said the barn was first. I didn't. She said, that's where you told her to hide. He looked back at the house, at the window, stepping out the front door now, eyes wide, the shawl pulled tight against the wind. You think I started this? The man shouted. You tell us, the widow said. I was inside. I smelled smoke. The boy stepped forward. She said you'd panic. Say you didn't mean to. I didn't. She said you didn't mean nothing. Not the words, not the silence, not the fire. You don't understand. She said you don't either. The flames roared louder, licking the beams like they remembered every lie. The man turned to the widow. You've known me for 20 years. I knew your front porch version. I wouldn't do this. The widow walked closer. Then who would? I don't know. The boy whispered. She said it wouldn't be the first time you watched something burn, and called it fate. She gave birth in there, he snapped, pointing to the barn. That's what you said yesterday. That I let that happen. You did, the boy said. The man's fist clenched. I was just a deputy. I didn't make the rules. But you followed them. I didn't know. She screamed. The boy said, she never screamed at me. She screamed after you turned her away. The barn collapsed inward. Sparks shot high. The fire shifted. The widow pulled the boy back. The man fell to his knees in the dirt. I didn't know, he said again. Softer now, almost begging. The boy crouched. She said you knew just enough to close the door. She was scared. So was I. She said fear doesn't make a man weak, but silence does. She came to me, he said she was pregnant, said she was going to name the baby after the wind. And what did you say? I told her the sheriff wouldn't help her. Did you tell her you wouldn't either? I told her to run. Run where? The man looked at the fire. Anywhere but here. The boy stared at the flames too. She didn't make it far. I never saw her again. She saw you, the boy whispered, when she was dying, when the barn started burning the first time. She saw your face in the window. I was scared. She was 17. I didn't think. You didn't think she'd die. The man covered his face. I thought someone else would help her. Someone better than me. There wasn't anyone. The fire cracked loud. The widow stood with her back to the boy now, staring into the blaze. Her voice came quiet. You always said that barn was your father's pride. Said it was the only thing he ever built himself. The man didn't answer. She turned to him. Why'd it burn the first time? His hands dropped from his face. Lightning. That's what you told people. There was a storm that night. And the girl, she was gone by then. You sure? He looked away. The boy stepped beside the widow. She said the barn kept her longer than he did. The widow's voice hardened. You knew what happened inside that place. He nodded. And you never tore it down. I didn't know how. Matches are easy. He laughed once, bitter. Guess someone figured that out. The wind changed direction. Smoke rolled across the field. The boy's eyes didn't move. She said fire is the last thing a coward turns to, because it doesn't ask for confession, just fuel. I didn't mean this. She said, don't change the ash. The man stood. I don't want him here. Too bad, the widow said. I didn't ask for this. She didn't either, the boy replied. You think I'm the only one who failed her? No, the widow said, but you're the only one still breathing. The fire kept burning. They watched it until there was nothing left but glowing ribs of wood and the slow hiss of steam. The man turned back toward the house. Walked like he was older now. The boy didn't follow. Not yet. By morning, the barn was nothing but smoke and black ribs. The man stood in the wreckage with shovel in one hand and silence in the other. His shirt was damp with sweat. His eyes stayed on the ash. The boy sat on the porch, knees tucked in, holding the ledger like it was a spine he didn't have yet. The widow paced slowly near the gate, arms crossed, her face tight with something close to warning. The truck pulled up just after the sun cleared the treetops. Big tires, black paint, dust in its mirrors. The door opened and the boots hit first. Crisp leather, too clean for this road. The new sheriff stepped out slowly. Tall, straight, younger than his badge looked. But his face belonged to someone older. Been a while, he said. The man didn't look up. Thought you'd left town. I did. What brought you back? Fire. He stepped toward the wreckage, slow and deliberate. His eyes moved across the ruins without blinking. He reached down into the ash, brushed aside soot, and lifted something with 2 fingers. Half melted, bent, the badge. He turned it in the light. Looks like you were cleaning the house. The man didn't flinch. It wasn't me. Sure. Are you here as a neighbor or as a law? The sheriff's jaw ticked. That's the funny part. I'm both now. The boy stood behind the widow. She stepped sideways, shielding him. The sheriff noticed. His eyes dropped to the boy's arms, wrapped tight around the ledger. Well, it's private, the widow said. Doesn't look like it. The sheriff took a few steps toward the porch. What's your name, son? The boy didn't answer. Are you hiding something? Still silent. He's not answering you, the widow said. I notice. The man wiped sweat from his brow. He ain't part of this. The sheriff looked back at him. Everything on your land is part of this. It wasn't my fire. Funny, always figured your lies would be louder than your house burning down. The man took a step forward. Are we done with the jabs? Not hard. The sheriff flicked the badge into the air, caught it. My father wore this. I remember. Thought it was lost. It was buried. Is that so? The boy spoke, voice thin. She said it belonged to the man who let the fire happen, and the one who watched. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Who's she? Someone who remembered. Names? No. The sheriff looked at the man again. Is this kid yours? No. Then why is he here? Because I didn't stop him. The widow stepped forward. He's got questions. We all do, but some of us earned answers. The sheriff smiled without warmth. You think I don't know what's in that ledger? You know what your father did? He didn't blink. I know what he left behind. You know the names? He looked at the boy. I know someone's about to start asking the wrong people the right questions. The boy clutched the ledger tighter. Are you planning to arrest a child? The widow asked. I'm planning to keep order. Whose? The kind that keeps people from digging up what ain't buried clean. The man threw the shovel down. You're scared. I'm careful. You sound just like him. The sheriff turned, slow. That supposed to mean something? You know it does. He looked back at the barn. You always were good at making messes. The man stepped up to him. And you were always good at pretending not to see them. They stood close. Too close. The widow didn't move. The boy held still. The sheriff leaned in. If that book finds its way into the wrong hands, I'll burn what's left of this place. The widow's voice cut sharp. You won't touch him. The sheriff didn't look at her. He's not my concern. Then what is? He stepped back, tossed the badge to the ground. It landed face down in the dirt. He walked back to his truck, opened the door. Watch your house, he said. Watch your porch. Some things still catch fire easily. Then he drove off. The smoke didn't rise anymore, but the heat hadn't left. The grass around the well had grown tall, bristled and sharp, like it was trying to keep people out. The widow stood just beyond the overgrowth, one hand on the old stone rim, the other wrapped tight around a rusted rope pulley. The boy kept behind her, eyes on the well like it might breathe. The man came last. He didn't speak as he stepped through the weeds. His boots cracked the stems. They didn't spring back. "Do you remember this place?" the widow asked. He stared at the well. "You used to say it was dry." Said it had been dry since your father died. "It has." "Then why has it still got a rope?" He didn't answer. The pulley groaned as she fed the line down. "Back then, you said it was where the dogs went to die," she said. Said the well was for forgetting. "Wasn't mine," he muttered. She kept lowering. The rope slid slowly. Dust lifted from the stone lip. The sound of it stretched long into the dark below. "How deep?" the boy asked. "Far enough," the widow said. The man looked away. She stopped, tugged the line twice. "Ready?" The boy nodded. The man didn't move. She started pulling. It wasn't fast. The rope whined against the weight. Something shifted below. Water dripped. Metal scraped. Then it rose. A canvas sack. Soaked. Dark at the seams. Pulled taut like it still held something that didn't want to come back up. The boy stepped closer. "Don't," the man said. The widow didn't stop. She dragged the sack to grass. Knelt beside it. Untied the cord. The boy watched her hands work. She peeled it open. Bones. Small. Piled like twigs. Wrapped in burlap. Tied with a strip of blue fabric. The boy crouched low. She said, "You dropped them here." The man took a step back. She said she heard them hit the bottom. "I didn't." The boy looked up. "You said the barn was just a building." "It was." "You said the well was dry." "I thought it was." "You said you didn't know." "I didn't." She said lies don't get lighter when you say them twice. The widow didn't speak. She just laid the sack open wider. A small jawbone. 3 tiny ribs. A scrap of fabric, still caught on one of the knots. "Blue," she whispered. She said she wrapped him in blue. The man's hands curled into fists. She said you told her the baby was gone. The boy said, "I didn't know." The man muttered, "You knew." "I didn't see." "But you looked away." The widow stood. "Tell us who else knew." He didn't answer. "Tell us." "I don't know." "You do." He dropped to his knees. "I didn't put them there." "But you didn't pull them out." His head dropped. "No." "She begged you." "I told her not to come here." "She came anyway?" He nodded. "She trusted you." He nodded again. The boy reached into the sack. Lifted something small, flat, smooth. A locket. He held it up. The man looked at it and closed his eyes. The boy opened the clasp. Inside, faded to almost nothing, a photo of a girl with dark hair and tired eyes. She said that's the only picture she ever had of herself. "She left it with me," the man whispered. "You threw it down the well." "I was trying to forget." "You were trying to erase her." The wind passed over the field. The grass bent. The trees stayed still. She said, "Wells don't forget." The boy said, "They just wait." The widow pulled the sack closed. "We bury them properly," she said. The man nodded. She looked at him hard. "You dig the grave." He stood, didn't argue. The boy watched as he picked up the shovel. I walked to the hill behind the barn's ashes. And for the second time that week, he broke the ground open. The boy was back under the porch before the ground had cooled from yesterday's sun. Same spot, same shovel, same silence. The man watched from the steps, elbows on knees, staring like he already knew what was buried and just didn't want to say it first. The widow stood behind him, arms crossed tight. She hadn't said a word all morning. The boy dug slowly this time, careful, as if he wasn't looking for something, just waiting to hear it breathe. Then came the clink. Not rock, not root, metal. He knelt down and brushed the dirt with his fingers. A square edge, rusted, small. He pulled it up. Tin box, dented corner. Flakes of yellow paint are still clinging to the lid. A scrap of ribbon wrapped twice around it. Knotted once, like a promise someone meant to keep but didn't. The man stood. "Put it back," he said. The boy looked up. She said, "This is gold." The widow stepped forward. "What is it?" The boy sat back, laid the box in his lap. "She said you kept it here because it still scared you." I said, "Put it back." The man said again. "She said you buried treasure." "There's no treasure. Only what mattered," the boy whispered. He untied the ribbon. The man took a step forward. "Don't open it." The boy opened it. The widow sucked in a breath and stepped back. Inside, teeth, dozens. Small, some gray, some yellowed, some with the slightest stain of old blood, arranged in neat rows like someone meant to catalog them. Canines, molars, a few so tiny they must have come from a child barely old enough to speak. The man didn't move. The boy stared down. She said you kept her smile. The man lowered his head. The widow stepped back again, handing over her mouth. "Dear God." She said it was the only part of her you thought belonged to you. "I didn't—" the man started, but the words caught. The boy didn't blink. She said when the fire started, she smiled, because she knew this box would be the only thing you couldn't explain. The gate creaked. Boots crunched over gravel. The sheriff stepped through the fence line. No warning. No call ahead. Just dust and heat and a pistol on his hip that looked heavier today than it did yesterday. He saw the man. Saw the widow. Then I saw the boy, holding the box. "What now?" he asked. The man didn't answer. The sheriff stepped closer. "What do I think it is?" No one spoke. He took another step. "Someone better tell me what the hell I'm looking at." The boy held it out. The sheriff looked down. The metal box. The yellow ribbon. The neat rows of teeth stacked like coins. He didn't flinch. She said, "It's gold." The boy said. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "Gold?" She said it's the only part he couldn't burn. The man turned away. The sheriff looked at the widow. "You knew about this?" "I didn't," she said. "But I should have." The sheriff's hand moved to his pistol. "This evidence—" "No," the boy said. "It's human remains. It's a memory." The sheriff looked at the man. "You collect these?" "No." "Then who did?" "I don't know." "You kept them?" "I buried them." "Same thing." The widow's voice cut in. She gave them to him. The sheriff turned to her. "You believe that?" "I believe grief makes people do ugly things, especially when it's mixed with guilt." The boy ran a finger across the lid. She said, "He took them to remember what he broke." The sheriff's voice dropped. "That box gets to town. Someone's going to hang for it." "No one's taking it to town," the widow said. "Then what are you going to do?" "We're going to return it." "To who?" The boy looked up. "To her." "She's dead." "She's not gone." The sheriff exhaled. "You all sound crazy." "Maybe," the man said, "but I kept it for 20 years. Doesn't that make me worse?" The sheriff stared at him. "Why?" "I was scared I'd forget what I'd done. And now, I'm scared I won't." The widow walked over, gently closed the box. "She smiled when she died. That's what you said." The man nodded. She knew this would come back. "She did." The boy tied the ribbon again. Slower this time. "What do we do with it?" the sheriff asked. "We dig," the boy said. The man pointed toward the hill. "Same place." The boy nodded. The man took the box. "Hold it like something living." The sheriff didn't stop him. For the third time, the shovel hit the earth. And this time, it wasn't digging for the truth. It was burying the only part of her that had stayed. The sheriff didn't take him to the courthouse. Didn't read right. Didn't call for backup. Just opened the screen door and shoved the man inside his own kitchen. Hard enough that a chair scraped and fell. "Tell it here," he said. The man caught himself on the table. "What are you doing?" "This is the trial." "In my house." "Where else?" "The courthouse is theirs. Out here's ours." The boy stepped in behind them. The widow followed. She didn't close the door. The sheriff pointed at the chair. "Sit." The man stayed standing. "I said sit." He sat. The sheriff leaned on the counter. Start talking. About what? The girl, the fire, the bones, the ledger, the teeth. The man stared at the table. You already know. No, I want to hear it in your voice. The widow stepped forward. Say her name. He looked up. You want me to say it now after all this? She wanted to hear it before. The boy's voice came low. She said her name only mattered if you said it without shaking. He swallowed. Mara. The widow's face went tight. Louder. Mara. What happened to her? The man's eyes dropped. She trusted me. And she was 17. Said she was pregnant. Said she was scared. What did you do? I told her to leave town. Why? Because she named him. The sheriff asked, named who? The man looked at him. Your father. Silence fell like a blade. The sheriff's eyes didn't move. She said my father was the one. She begged him to help. He told her to disappear. The boy's voice cut through. She said she ran to you after. She did. The widow's voice was flat. And you told her the same. The man shook his head. I told her to hide. Said I'd try to figure something out. But you didn't. I waited too long. The sheriff folded his arms. You let my father burn her down? No, the man said. I let him bury her. The sheriff stepped forward fast, hand on his belt. You're saying he killed her? I'm saying he silenced her. I just helped keep the quiet. The boy whispered. She said you were the second match. The sheriff looked at the boy. And the teeth. She smiled at him, the widow said. Even after all that? The man nodded. I found them in the barn. After, wrapped in her scarf. I thought they were meant for me. The boy said, she said they were. I kept them because I couldn't carry her voice. The sheriff backed up, pacing. You're telling me my father... Yes, the widow said. And you just let it happen? I didn't know how to stop him. The boy looked up. She said men like you never do. The sheriff slammed his hand on the table. This ledger, these names, how many? Dozens, the widow said. Girls. Yes. The boy pointed at the stove. She said the last one never got a grave. The man stood. You think I wanted this? No, the widow said. But you didn't stop it. The sheriff's breath came hard now. You're telling me everything I built my name on was built on her bones. The man looked at him. Yeah. The boy stepped to the center of the room. She said memories don't stay buried if the walls remember. The widow reached behind the clock, pulled out the ledger. She laid it on the table. The man pushed it toward the sheriff. Open it. He did. He read in silence. The names, the red ink, the dates. He found Mara. He closed the book. She died calling out. The boy said. The man nodded. And I never answered. The sheriff didn't draw his gun, didn't raise his voice, just whispered. Then we all hang together. And no one disagreed. The sheriff left at sundown, didn't say goodbye, just took the ledger under one arm and walked to his truck like the whole town was strapped to his back. Dust kicked up behind him, swallowing the road as the engine faded. The man watching the porch, shoulders sunk, arms heavy. The screen door creaked behind him but didn't close. The boy stayed on the steps, didn't speak, didn't move. The widow stood in the yard, eyes on the horizon like she was waiting for something else to come next. Nothing did. You're still here, the man muttered. The boy didn't answer. You should be gone by now. Still nothing. The man stepped down. You want something? The boy looked up. Mama said I will stay till the gold is gone. The man scoffed. What gold? She said you'd ask that. There was never gold. She said you'd say that, too. There were lies. There was silence, but no treasure. The boy shook his head. She said the gold's not shiny. It's what's left when nothing else is. I don't even know what that means. She said the truth is gold, and you still got some buried. The man turned. I gave you everything. Not yet. I let you tear up my porch, my barn, my whole life. She said your porch was built on bones. I told the sheriff the truth. The boy stood. You told him what you remembered, not what you buried. The widow walked over, voice calm. He's not leaving. The man looked between them. You think I'm hiding something else? The boy pointed to the old oak by the fence line. She said it's where you made the promise. What promise? You tell us. The man closed his eyes. I don't remember. Then dig. The man's hand shook. I'm tired. She said guilt doesn't sleep. He stepped off the porch and marched to the tree. Fine. The boy followed. The widow did, too. He grabbed the shovel still leaning by the side of the house. I started digging. The ground was dry, packed hard. He threw his weight into it. 1 foot, 2. Sweat ran down his back. The boy knelt, pressed his palm to the dirt. She said it's deeper. The man kept digging. The widow knelt beside the boy. What did she bury here? The boy answered without looking up. Her name. The shovel hit something solid. Not metal, not stone. Wood. A small box. The man dropped to his knees, brushed the dirt away with his hands. The lid was cracked. The hinges rusted. A ribbon, frayed, red, wrapped around it. He untied it, opened the lid. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Yellowed. Fragile. He lifted it out with shaking fingers. The boy sat back, watching. The widow leaned in close. The man unfolded the paper. Read it, then read it again. What is it? The widow asked. He didn't speak. She took it from him gently. Read aloud. To the one who stayed quiet. This is what your silence cost me. My name was Mara. I was 17. I was whole. You said you couldn't stop him, but you could have stood beside me. Instead, you looked away. So I buried my name under the one place I thought it might grow again. If someone find this, tell them I was real. The paper trembled in her hands. The boy whispered. She said her name wasn't gone, just waiting. The man collapsed back in the dirt. She buried her name, the widow said softly, so it wouldn't be erased. He covered his face. I didn't know she wrote that. She wrote it for you. The boy stood. Now it's yours to carry. She wanted me to remember? She wanted you to admit it. The man sat up, mud on his hands, eyes rimmed red. She was real, he said. The widow nodded. He looked at the boy. You were right. There was gold. The boy smiled. Small. She said only shines when it's not hidden. They sat there, all three of them, as the sun dropped below the tree line, and the ground, for the first time in years, felt lighter. The man didn't wait for morning. He stepped outside barefoot, shoveling forgotten against the barn's ashes. The sky hung low, black with no stars, and the wind carried nothing but the weight of what still needed saying. The boy sat on the porch, knees pulled in, arms wrapped around him like he already knew what was coming. The widow stood just beyond the steps, lantern in hand, shawl tight across her chest. She said nothing. The man dropped to his knees near the old oak. No markers, no boards, just dirt. He started digging. No tools, just hands. Each pull of soil tore his fingers open, knuckles bleeding. Earth packed hard around his wrists, like it didn't want to let go. The boy walked to the edge of the hole. She said it's under everything, he whispered. What matters most always is. The man didn't answer. He kept digging. Faster now. Hands raw. Breathing uneven. The widow held the lantern steady. Then his fingers struck wood. Splintered. Charred. He paused. Heart slamming in his chest. Scraped away more dirt. There it was. A cradle. Broken in half. Scorched black. Hidden like shame. The boy crouched low. Reached out. Touched the edge with quiet fingers. She said you'd remember now. The man collapsed beside it, hands trembling. His breath hitched. The widow stepped forward, knelt beside them. She ran her hand along the wood, the curve of what once held life. She kept it. The man whispered. She hid it. The widow said. She trusted me with it. She wanted you to bury the fire, not her name. The boy looked at the man. She said this was where it all ended, and where it starts again. The man touched the cradle. fingertips catching on the burned edges. "I told her to leave," he said. "Told her to run." "She stayed," the widow whispered, "because she believed in something you didn't." He looked up, eyes wet. "She believed in me. She believed someone would remember her right." The wind moved through the trees. From the porch, the screen door creaked open. The sheriff stood in the frame, just watching. He didn't speak. "I didn't need to." The man looked at the cradle again. "I can't lift it." "You're not supposed to," the boy said. "It's too heavy." It always was. The widow stood, looking at the sheriff. "You gonna stop us?" He shook his head. "No." He stepped down, slowly. I walked to the edge of the hole. His shadow fell across the boy, the man, the cradle. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked. The man didn't answer. The sheriff stepped back. "Doesn't matter." They sat in silence. The boy reached into the dirt, pressed his hand flat against the earth. "It's still warm," he said. The man looked up, startled. The boy pressed deeper. "She said it would be." The widow knelt again, touched the dirt. It was warm. Not from the sun, not from fire, from memory, from something that never left. She said what's buried in love never gets cold. The boy said. The man closed his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The boy didn't speak. The widow didn't move. The sheriff watched, jaw tight. The man pressed both hands to the ground. He didn't cry. He didn't break. He just stayed there, kneeling in the warmth. The cradle beside him. The boy in front of him. The past is too heavy to bury again. And the dirt stayed warm. The sun rose without sound. No birds. No wind. Just light moving slow across the boards of the porch, touching what had been buried, what had burned, and what still remained. The man sat in a rocking chair, hands still caked in dried blood and soil. The cradle had been reburied the night before, this time in a clearing beneath the oak, with the boy's hand pressed to the earth, and the widow whispering a name that now had weight. He didn't rock, didn't sip coffee, just sat. The screen door creaked once behind him, then eased open like it didn't want to interrupt. The boy stepped out barefoot, carrying a folded quilt under one arm. He placed it on the rail. "She said this was hers," he said. The man looked at it. "Where'd you find that?" "Top shelf, behind the picture frame." "I forgot it was up there." The boy nodded. "She didn't." The man picked it up. It smelled like cedar, like age, like something that had waited. He ran a hand over the stitching. Crooked lines, initials in one corner, and W. The widow came out next. Shawl dropped for her shoulders for the first time in days. "Your porch don't creak anymore," she said. The man didn't look up. "Maybe it's finally done hiding." She handed him a folded piece of paper. "Fresh. What's this?" "A list." He opened it. Names. 27. All women. I thought the ledger was gone. "It is," she said, "but memory stays." He looked at the last name on the list. Not Mara, not even her full name, just the girl who smiled last. She said you'd recognize her that way, the boy said. The man folded the paper and tucked it into his chest pocket. "What now?" he asked. "You asked them to come," the widow said. "Who?" "The mothers, the sisters, the ones who still carry quiet." He stared at the porch floor. "They won't come here." "They will," she said, "when they hear it's safe to speak." "I don't know how to make it safe." "You already did," the boy said. "How?" "You stayed." The man stood slowly, walked to the edge of the porch, looked out over the field, the place where the barn used to be, the spot behind the oak where the ground still held warmth. He said nothing. The widow moved to the steps. "They'll come, not all at once, maybe not loud, but they'll come," the boy added, "and when they do, they'll bring more names." The man nodded. He looked up at the sky, as if listening for her voice. Then he sat back down. The chair rocked once, just once, and the porch didn't creak.